Enoch didn't die and was translated to heaven according to Scripture. Okay? And people will be at home and they'll be thinking, that's what it says. That's absolutely what it says. Genesis 5:24, Enoch walked with Elohim, then he was no more, for Elohim took him. Okay? He walked with him, then he was no more. Elohim took him. And then what other description do we have of Enoch? By belief, Enoch was translated so as to not see death. There you go. He was translated. Elohim took him. He didn't see death. How much plainer do you want it to be in the Scriptures? We need to understand the Scriptures. We need to understand what these things actually mean. Again, we can't take eisegesis, this idea from outside the Scriptures that Enoch was raptured. We need to understand what the Scriptures teach about these things. So we'll start with Enoch walked with Elohim, then he was no more, for Elohim took him. Okay, Enoch, before the flood was going to come on the earth, Elohim took him. Isaiah 57 verse 1, the righteous one has perished. Righteous person's died. No one takes it to heart. Kind men are taken away, while no one understands that the righteous one is taken away from the presence of evil. What happened? Elohim took him. The righteous one died. But surely in Hebrews it says that he didn't die. By belief, Enoch was translated so as to not see death. So it's something actually about faith or about belief that caused him to be translated so as to not see death. So maybe his faith was so great that he didn't die, and Elohim translated him up to heaven. Colossians 1 verse 13 says, who has delivered us from the authority of darkness, translated us into the kingdom of the Son of his love. We've been translated too, but this meaning of translated from outside the Scriptures is not one that we should be taking. We should be taking our understanding from the Scriptures. Okay, so we've been translated into the kingdom. So by belief, Enoch was translated, just as by belief we are translated. John 8:51 says, truly, truly, I say to you, if anyone guards my words, he shall never see death at all. Just the same as Enoch. Enoch never saw death. He was translated by faith so as to never see death. We are translated by faith and we will never see death. Obviously, we die physically though, so it's not talking about the physical death when it says you will never see death. It's talking about the death of the soul, the second death. And we will never see death by faith. Just like Enoch, by faith, never saw death. Elohim took him to spare him from the evil. By faith he was translated not to see death. If we take our meaning from the Scriptures, these things are clear. 2 Kings 2 verse 11. Okay, this is about Elijah, because people say Enoch and Elijah were both taken up to heaven. They're the two, and so they'll be the two witnesses, and this, that, and the other. But as we saw, the reasoning for Enoch being taken up to heaven is actually false and comes from outside of the Scriptures. The Scriptures paint a different story when we understand them. But 2 Kings 2 verse 11 said, and it came to be as they continued on and spoke, that see a chariot of fire and horses of fire, which separated the two of them, and Eliyahu went up by a whirlwind into heaven. There you go. Couldn't be much more clear. This is just after he's put his double portion of his blessing on Elisha, and Elisha has become the prophet. And he was taken up by a whirlwind into heaven. Now, heaven can mean the place where Yehovah is. Heaven also, Shamayim, can mean the sky. Okay, to be taken up into heaven can be taken up into the sky. And this is exactly what the people who witnessed this event took it to be. 5 verses later it says, and they said to him, look, there are 50 strong men with your servants. Please let them go and search for your master, lest the spirit of Yehovah has taken him up and cast him upon some mountain or into some valley. They didn't see him ascend like Yeshua into heaven with Elohim. They saw him go into the sky. And Elijah didn't disappear from the planet at this point. We know that Elijah was about after this point on the planet. Thus we know that he wasn't taken into heaven to be with Yehovah. 2 Chronicles 21 verse 1 says, "And Jehoshaphat slept with his fathers and was buried with his fathers in the city of David. And Jehoram, his son, reigned in his place." Jehoshaphat is Jehoram's father. After Jehoshaphat had died, Jehoram began to reign. In 2 Chronicles 21 verse 12 it says, "And a letter came to him from Eliyahu the prophet." Okay, so this is Elijah the prophet writing him a letter. Who's he writing it to though? "Because you've not walked in the ways of Jehoshaphat your father." So he's writing it to Jehoram, and the context is that he's writing it to Jehoram. So Eliyahu writes a letter to Jehoram, okay, who only came to reign after the death of his father. And he says, it's because you've not walked in your father's ways in this letter. When Elijah was taken up into heaven, he put his double portion of his blessing onto Elisha, and Elisha then became prophet. In 2 Kings 3 verse 11, Jehoshaphat is alive, and he says, "Is there no prophet of Yehovah here?" Then they answered and said to him, "Elisha, son of Shaphat, is here, who poured the water out on the hands of Eliyahu." Okay, so Jehoram was ruling when Jehoshaphat was dead, and he gets a letter from Elijah. Elisha is prophet when his father is alive. So when he was taken up into heaven, Jehoshaphat was alive. Subsequent to that, Jehoshaphat died, Jehoram began to rule, and then Elijah wrote a letter to him. So he was around on the earth after the time he was taken up into heaven. But we just misunderstand the meaning of Shemayim to simply mean that he was raptured up into heaven. So just like Enoch, Elijah also was not raptured into heaven. So I give, just as generous as I can be, 3 out of 10 factually for this. Okay, because if we understand these things from the scriptures, we understand what they really mean. If we understand them from outside of the scriptures or from our own imaginations or our own interpretations of what those words could mean, then we could understand it to mean that. So being as generous as is possible, in my reckoning, I give it 3 out of 10. But as for an argument as to why we accept it as scripture, it's neither here nor there. Even if what the Book of Enoch, or even if Enoch was translated into heaven and he was this special guy, that wouldn't mean that we were to take a book that purported to be written by him as scripture on that basis.